Greetings, all. Time for something a little different. Gareth over at DMG Info way back in 2015 published a little adventure, and I finally had the chance to run it successfully.
The before times. But seriously, why are we reviewing a module?
Well, Gareth offered a fully modern digital module. He used his terrain, his YouTube channel, and the combination of text-based PDF and images to give really the best player and DM experience he could, leaving room for very few points for consideration. In short, this module is exceptionally accessible, easy to read, most easy to implement, and can fit into almost any game. All these points make it worth, at the very least, a brief discussion.
It only took him 3 attempts, 2 different DMs, and multiple years to do it. Why'd y'all struggle to run it anyways? It seems like a good module to me.
Well, stick around and I'll tell you. But this time, we aren't alone. It's the Blackboard will give us their advice today.
Why, thank you. I'm a victim, a player of no particular importance.
Everyone welcome Brad, today's spirit of the Blackboard. He comes from the great beyond, the very bowels of the internet, to give his opinion as a player.
Indeed, and most excellent. Thank you for hearing our call. The Netherworld's a busy place, we hear.
Well, don't leave us in suspense. What's this module all about?
This adventure will have your party plumbing the depths of a tavern keeper's basement, combating vermin, undead, solving multi-generational mysteries. For those that want to check out the adventure, check on Drive-Thru RPG. It's $3. You can't go wrong for 28 pages, system agnostic, 5-floor dungeon.
This is an extensive module that really can't be played in one sitting. You'll want to play with a good variety of characters. Success of the party will strongly depend on a characters supporting each other.
Spoilers, my dude. If any one of y'all listen beyond this point, you've been warned. Send this video to your DM, your grandma, your aunt, your uncle, anyone you can talk into running this module for you.
Yeah, it did take me a few attempts, didn't it? Well, it opens on a dark and stormy night, the best kind. The party is inside the tavern, and the owner approaches them with a very simple request. It's the vermin in their basement.
Yes, killing rats in the basement, an oldie but a goodie.
But wait, there's more! The dungeon is written so that any vermin, any treasure, and of course, any game system can be used. And it gets better. As the party explores the first floor, they'll find more than just vermin.
There are larger, fouler things than rats in the depths of the ancient world.
Well, they also went in search of the innkeeper's kid. He likes to map the basement and explore.
I think you mean light, because you don't live long in a D&D world where you go solo adventuring. Hello.
Yeah. The first few rooms will have the generic vermin as the party explores the first floor. All will seem normal until they reach the causeway. This is a slick area that requires either careful planning or balance checks to cross. This is where the party really gets their first glimpse with the monster in the water.
Ooh, so the players are in the dark, by a body of water, and see a tentacle monster. Are we sure this isn't Tolkien?
Be a little bit. Just a little bit. Oh, my players had an exceptional reaction to this section. Do you think, Brett? This is one of those main encounters for the floor, while Gareth recommends a giant squid or something, as one might say, I'm a bastard.
This encounter ramped the seriousness of the dungeon. Where did this creature come from? What was its source of food? What were we doing here anyway?
Well, I could safely say that the player characters are the source of the food. And so, doing what player characters do, they decided to go fly fishing with party members as bait. It did work out in the end. One got turned into scum and dominated, but they managed to track it down and save their friend in the end.
Some people pay for that and call it a good time, right? Anyway, there is another creature on the first floor. Earth once again leaves it up to the DM, and Like the aboleth encounter with which we just lovingly described, I chose a basilisk instead. Because in truth, it's trapped behind the back portion of the floor until the party releases it. At some point, the party is likely to find the unmarked switch in the abandoned mining area. By throwing the switch, they release the monster, and, well, fun and frivolity ensue.
Throwing unmarked switches is always a great idea. Cannot recommend it enough. But just to summarize, you put an aboleth and a basilisk against a first level party, you are a dick.
In my defense, the module told me a quote unquote unbeatable monster that could chase the party throughout the dungeon and down to the second floor. I really didn't think my party was stupid or suicidal enough to really fight their way through it. They did.
Well, I'm wearing his armor right now. Uh, we were not suicidal. We were merely angry, and that thing was in our way.
Well, it did stone three of you, I think, and all in all, it was ultimately a good first floor, I think. This is the basement section of the module, mining section, the quote unquote under construction section. Even a small sewer section was added down on both the actually first floor, second floor, part of the fourth floor, and through part of the fifth floor as well. So there'll be some recurring themes here. And in fact, if you wanted, you could simply end the dungeon at the second floor. Indeed, that's where most party members actually seemed to stop.
Hey, wait a minute. Before we move on, I've got some beef.
Yes, Duncan.
Well, this dungeon is great and all, but Gareth didn't mark any of the secret doors. When were you going to mention that?
My only major gripe. In his YouTube videos, Gareth does show where the doors are, and I did have to watch some of them 3, 4 times. I eventually figured it out. I guess it helped the channel's algorithm a little bit. But seriously, the videos were a major help in this regard. But yeah, I have a beef with his maps too.
So the monster didn't chase him to the second floor. In fact, they killed it, and you have to tell the party the innkeeper's son was missing?
And the party went back down and searched for him. This was their true motivation to continue searching the first and even beyond to the second. During the search for the kid, they found the MacGuffin for the adventure. Hidden behind a secret door, in this instance, was a magical axe. It could have been any magical weapon. I just like axes.
So did Mr. Proser, and we know how that ended. That axe would be a real bear for your party, but on to the second floor.
Indeed, the second sees the party exploring an alchemical laboratory and nearly tripping over the body of the innkeeper's son. First, set the scene.
The old door opens into a large vaulted area. This used to be a large room, but the floors and northern and southern walls have collapsed into the darkness below. A chasm extends north to south. There is little space on either side. A wind blows through the area coming up from the south. It carries on it the groaning sound. To the north are exposed balustrades that still hold up some walls and would have been holding up walls in this area. This is a wall visible to the west. A wooden post on the northern edge of the opposite side of the chasm is just visible in the dimness. Immediately out of the south of the entrance in this area of muddy water, with a waterfall cascading out of the ceiling high above. To the south of that is a short passage and a closed, simple wooden door. In the passage is a small, dead body. Dun, dun, dun.
We won't be reading any more of the box text in this module, I assure you, but this is really a sticking point. Boy is supposed to get up and leap off the edge of the precipice in the darkness below, but my party decided to wrap him up and carry him out and return him to his mother, like any reasonable person would.
So you had to resort to some extreme measures to get the party to return to the dungeon. They had other quests to do, or maybe don't give them so many options next time.
Yeah, you'd think I'd learn. But yes, after I had the magical axe possess a party member, And, of course, Frog marched them back in. They eventually went back to exploring. Floor 2 is largely a mess of falling apart rooms, corridors, and bridges. Once the party crosses a major gap and works their way across some bridges, they get to find a key, this metal rod, and, of course, fight some undead when they get there.
In your game, they were chasing another PC around the dungeon while they bellowed, "Return the axe," like that scene from Courage the Cowardly Dog, right?
And once they move into that sealed room, the room begins to shake, skeletons descend from on high, quite literally falling out of the masonry. After the party viciously defeats them, they advance to the next section, but that's not all. The scaffolding and pathways collapse behind them, the room collapses behind them, and now they are sealed in.
Luckily for you, they were too busy chasing their friend down to the third floor rather than panicking or trying to dig themselves out.
And this is where the mapping flew out the window. The party had no choice but to follow our friend. It was a Keystone Cops type of chase, through a maze.
Floor 3 was a bit of a problem for me as a DM. The party starts by being down this long exterior hallway, which progressively slopes down into a flooded section with undead. I don't think my players wouldn't have gone down it. They certainly would not have gone down a flooded hallway unless they were chasing one of their other party members.
The layout was also confusing. Rooms 2 and 3 are said to be flooded in the descriptions, but not on the map. Room 16 is flooded, and he showed that. So why not show it for areas 2 and 3?
Yeah, this is another problem when you rely heavily on terrain as a DM. This map is all terrain based, so a problem like this is largely inevitable. I don't really use terrain as a DM. Said, I do wish he had a side view. The north door in room 3 is on the second story after all, and would have liked a diagram of how this room looked before it was flooded, or at the very least, a side view to help construct a picture. I had to watch his videos and read the section 2 or 3 times before it really made any sense.
Right. The main gimmick of this floor is a fight with a doppelganger in room 4. And that was pretty cool. The party was still chasing the possessed character the whole time. So it must have been pretty crazy.
Our friend was still moving fast, and we had collapsed enough floors that to return seemed unlikely. Navigating flooded rooms was rather unpleasant.
Fair enough. And following that combat, the party actually has to turn a capstan and backtrack into room 16 in order to proceed down the floor. But before we move on, I want to talk about the Blood God.
Blood for the blood god.
There's a vampire lingering on the floor by a blood fountain.
Your players named him Sanguini, and he proceeded to chase them through the entire dungeon. He charmed Brad, ambushed the party. They couldn't keep him down.
Fire's coffin is on the second floor, and the party couldn't exactly get back to it. So they were trapped in a locked room scenario with a pissed off vampire, an enslaved party member, and a possessed party member. It was actually good times. They really couldn't get back to it, so every random encounter they had just became this vampire. Seriously, though, this was kind of my favorite part of the dungeon. What are your thoughts, Brett?
Being charmed by a vampire was really no fun, at least for the other party members. I, as a player, was only along for the ride.
Level 4 begins with the 3-lever door puzzle. As written, Garrett's puzzle does not have any consequences for brute forcing it, so that's what your party did.
Follows is a small collection of rooms and another capstan. Capstan actually closes the secret door that leads from room 5 back up to the boss room on an inaccessible portion of the 4th floor. Well, that's fun. Party didn't end up going that way anyway. We'll see.
Overall, the beginning section of the 4th floor was pretty unremarkable.
The party can access the rest of the floor from floor 5, either by a ladder on the eastern side or on a hidden stairwell, of course, on the western side.
Your party chose the eastern path. They worked their way into a hidden treasure room with a self-sealing door, crossed the sewage-filled quagmire, and nearly died to an electric trap.
Yeah, I had to alter the module a bit here. Sorry, guys. If I hadn't, y'all would have been dead from about 100 feet of electrified corridor. When they made it to the end, though, they found a kick-ass healing pool, so that was nice.
It could have even restored the party member who died to the spiders on the first floor.
Yeah, it's a shame they really didn't drag their friend's dead body down 4 floors of the dungeon. Thanks, Gareth. Really used that magic pool about 2, maybe 3 floors sooner. But seriously, it was a great inclusion. Sometimes the dungeon can actually help the party, and it's not just hurt them. Then they did something module breaking. They chiseled through the stone secret door with magic weapons, and well, found the boss room via the back door, thus avoiding most of the rest of the module.
Dun, dun, dun. But we'll talk about that later. Any thoughts on this section, Brad?
At this point, we felt we were out of options. We had to resort to drastic measures.
For now, on to the 5th floor.
Indeed, of the 5 levels of this module, this is probably the one I have the most issue with. The 5th floor begins with a spooky statue room, a ladder up to a secret sewer area, and of course, a pillar room which the party could use to actually reach a hidden area in level 3.
There was also that locked crystal door that led to a teleportation crystal. Didn't one of your players use that to teleport to a library on level 3 and the party had to go find him or something?
Yeah, this area has a lot to it. Gareth really packed a lot in here. I think it's a bit much for really a pair of rooms. It's just 2 rooms on this floor. You can see them here. They really are a nexus point for the dungeon here, but that's really not my main problem.
Was it the capstan puzzle on level 4 or was it the ghost room?
Oof. My party ended up using the crystal key and teleporting into the ghost room. That way, they made the possessed party member happy. They got rid of the cursed axe, and of course, the ghost that was possessing them went off to find their other party member, the one that yeeted himself up into the library.
And now our quest involves exploration from a direction the author had not intended. Up a pillar and through a sequence of areas not yet explored.
Y'all actually had to knock out a wall to out of that area of level 3, if I remember, and you made your way back down from through the doppelganger room, back through the flooded area room, back down and around as according.
And you'll see
So
why these ghosts matter later. But that whole situation seemed pretty chaotic. Yeah. They did split the party, which is always a great idea.
And it was actually at this moment, by the way, when the party were all back together, they made it back down into a pillar room, and instead of continuing on and going past the capstan puzzle, yada yada, they took that sewer route up, raided that sewer area I mentioned earlier in the video with that secret kick-ass secret treasure hoard and self-sealing door. They made it through that sewer quagmire and down through that electrified hallway. And when they did all of that, that was also then when they found the secret pool and started chiseling their way through the secret door. So now you're kind of caught up on the general sequence of events and not just the layout of the dungeon. So they ended up skipping the rest of level, but for the sake of the review, let's just cover what they didn't skip, shall we?
That capstan on level 4 actually controls a huge secret door on level 5 that's supposed to lead up to the boss room. This seems a little convoluted to me. The dungeon has gone out of its way to be logical. It has gone from temple to arcane laboratory and even has a history as a small mine and storeroom. Why is this trap here?
Well, if I had the party fight back on level 1, wasn't actually alone either. There's another one in a hidden area on this floor, although it's kind of a quantum aboleth of sorts. The module recommends the party encounter the same type of creature in the aquatic pool as they do before boss door on level 4. My party also missed this evil genie stroke demon that was imprisoned down in just a random large hookah style lamp. And if they made it past all that, there was a secret tunnel which led to a whole other dungeon.
Why would the party go into a new dungeon when they were sealed down in this one? Even if they found this once, the path on level 3 was sealed, and they'd have to go back through the entire dungeon to explore this new one. That makes no sense.
It seems to me that this fifth floor really needs an overhaul. There are some really good ideas here, but it feels like the floor has, well, too many ideas in it. From what you did see of it, do you think, oh, magical guest from the worlds beyond?
Well, our lack of making a cohesive map was causing problems. We knew where we had to go, but nothing looked right. We just wandered.
All right, now what you've all been waiting for, the boss, the BBEG, the monster at the end of the journey, the final test of our would be heroes, the challenge to beat all challenges, the.
I think they get it. Right, say your party ascends the stairs, skips past the stepping stones through a flooded room with another tentacle monster and a small horde of undead. And let's just say they make it through all of that in the final boss room. What's they get?
Well, in the middle of the room is a large black stone, and the spirit inside the stone will possess each party member in turn unless they have one of 3 holy symbols that were hidden throughout the dungeon. The party will naturally beat the possessed party member unconscious. Then one of 2 things happens.
Either one, the final possessed party member marches through the dungeon, performs a ritual, and the BBEG escapes. Or 2, the ghosts the party helped show up, defeat the evil, and the final battle's over.
That's not how I remember it at all. You have the fallen party members pilot the ghosts and have them fight the specter in a normal combat.
Yeah, what Gareth had planned here kind of sucked.
The party wasn't even allowed to save or resist.
Nope. And surprisingly, they took the whole possession and kill your friends thing pretty well. Because 2 of them actually had holy symbols, thankfully. Regardless of how you do it, DMs, I strongly recommend, I urge you to change what the module recommends here. No matter how you do it, the ending is very cinematic, also very railroady.
Following that is just a secret passage, a hidden treasure chamber, and a dash to the exit, and the adventure was done.
Overall, I really do think this was a great adventure. The first 3 floors are excellent. Floors 4 and 5 are a little convoluted for my liking, but who knows? Maybe you'll love it. Recommend you give it a try.
I liked the adventure, but there were problems. Players will find the collapsing floors to be troublesome, and that vampire causes nothing but grief.
I recommend you mine it for the ideas. Steal the first and second levels and maybe parts of the other ones. Use this as an inspiration for building your own dungeon. And speaking of inspiration, let us know what inspires you in the comments below.
Not be doing module reviews very often, I do think this multimodal format, particularly of this module, made it really deserve a spot on the channel. For as confusing as the parts were, the videos, the text-based PDF, the high-quality images, they really did help. It even came with player handouts. And even if I would prefer a graph paper map over, say, the terrain-based pictures, quibbling. So enough is enough. You know the drill. Have a like, blah, 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 blah. And we will see you again in a couple of weeks. For now, all, take it easy.
So long, and thanks for all the fish.